Well, holy flippy flap and smokes, Evergrande is royally doomed. Ladies and gentlemen, it has officially begun, the moment we've all been waiting for. Banks are coming in, they're going for the kill, and they're starting to seize billions and billions of dollars of Evergrande's cash, and this is leaving investors to hold the bag, and investors are beginning to panic. They probably should have done months ago. This will be another exciting episode of the Evergrande saga that seems to go from bad to worse every week. Now, of course, China has tried to cover up the housing crisis that is going on. They're trying to cover up how weak the economy in China really is, especially with these latest outbreaks of COVID, more lockdowns, more shutdowns, which will lead to more supply chain issues. But people, things are rotten to the core. We won't know how bad things really are till we start seeing things literally collapse like their tofu buildings. But the cracks are really starting to appear now. So everyone, what is the latest news, information, and data? Well, that's exactly what we're going to get into in today's video. So let's not waste any time. Let's hit the charts. Look at this. Evergrande unit discovers 2.1 billion of its cash can be seized by banks. Well, that was yesterday, everyone. Let's have a look what's happening now. Evergrande investors are left baffled by 2.1 billion, which has now been seized. So listen to this, everyone. Investors in China Evergrande Group are still in the dark over just how 2.1 billion of deposits at its property service unit came to be used as security for pledge guarantees and seized by the banks. In a call with investors late Tuesday, the developer officials reiterated comments from earlier filings that they were investigating the matter without sharing fresh details. According to people who attended and asked not to be identified, the third-party pledge guarantees wipes out most of Evergrande's Property Services Group's Ltd's cash holdings. Well, there seems to be a lot of investigating going on at Evergrande, but not much findings. It's peculiar because investors expect Evergrande management should be aware of where the cash went rather than instead setting up an investigation committee to find out. Well, again, people, I think it's Evergrande's management team that has caused this $300 billion worth of liabilities to pile up. So I wouldn't put much faith in them to carry out an investigation either, especially if there's some fraudulent behavior going on. So Evergrande creditors are keeping a close eye on the developer as it embarks on a debt restructuring that's likely to be among China's largest and most complex. That's exactly right, everyone. We have not seen a company at this scale try to do restructuring. And Evergrande right now, for those that have been living under a rock and not really sure what's happening in China right now, or should I say a global financial rock, because I'm sure a lot of people are doing other things besides worrying what's happening in China. Evergrande is the most indebted company with $300 billion worth of liabilities. Worries over transparency have surfaced repeatedly as Chinese developers struggled to cope with a credit crunch that swept the sector as Beijing clamps down on excessive borrowing. That's exactly right, everyone, because as we can see, the contagion, like I said, is going to spread. It is going to get worse. Look at this. Builders continue to miss deadlines as cash pledge arises. Because it's not just Evergrande, people. Listen to this. Sonic China Holdings Ltd and Chi Mao Group Holdings Ltd also announced earning delays as both blamed the latest COVID-19 wave in China. Their shares were lagging the sector's gains, with a Bloomberg intelligence gauge of developer shares were up 1.9%, and Hong Kong-listed property firms face a March 31st deadline to release audited annual results. And look at this, everybody. The real estate sector has made up to nearly 40% of defaults in 2021. So while people are telling you, look, there's no crisis going on in China, there's no property downturn, the data is saying another thing, and this is fudge manipulated data. I'm sure the real situation is much worse. And I think we could possibly face these kind of defaults of builders and developers default in Australia or countries like the US with the skyrocketing commodity prices. I know a lot of builders that, for example, if a client gets a fixed price for, say, a year, well, then if commodities and material prices skyrocket by 20%, and then all of a sudden the builder or the developer is building at a loss. And this is also bad news for consumers as well, because consumers are getting calls from their builders to say, look, we said, your build was going to cost 300,000, etc. Well, now all of a sudden it's going to cost an extra 50,000. I've seen this happening in Australia, and I've heard viewers are seeing this in the US as well. And what you have to know about China with real estate investment is a lot of people, they just buy these apartments off the plan and they don't even complete them. These are just shell apartments with no water, no electricity, no furniture, because in China, they believe it's bad luck to buy a secondhand apartment, and they normally try to buy and just hold it for 5 years to sell it for a profit. They have no intention of living in it. And also the yields, the rental yields are so low in China, they don't even bother renting it out either. And it's also been very profitable for the local governments in China as well, because they sell these lands, or should I say lease these lands to developers, and people in China also lease these apartments. Remember, in China, you don't own the land, which I guess is kind of true like in Australia and the US as well. Just don't pay your property taxes and see what happens. So everyone, what I think with what's happening with China, with what's happening with the Evergrande scenario and the property developers, I think it is getting worse. I think we haven't seen the worst of it yet, but unfortunately, I think China is going to try to cover up and manipulate a lot of the data, and we won't know how bad it really is until a few more months after all these developers keep missing these payment deadlines. But everyone, what do you think? Let me know. Now, for all my loyal viewers and subscribers still watching, you're awesome. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.